everyone. I can see people have joined, and I'm pretty sure we'll have even more people joining. Thank you so much from whenever you are at the moment connecting with us and truly taking time to talk about important things such as driving culture, driving a high-performing team, and how to build a soulful culture for our companies. And today I'm so happy and so grateful to welcome Claude Silver, who is the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia. I've been following Claude, and many of you mentioned to me as well for many years. And it's such an honor to speak with you, Claude, today, to welcome you here at for the Change HR community and learn from you whenever we can. So thank you for taking the time, Claude.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here and see everyone's faces and names and know that everyone's all over the world here.
Yeah, it's truly like from many countries. So I'm so happy we are global here today. So yeah, Claude, let's dive in. I think like I'm the type of person who would just listen to you nonstop, but let's try to have a little bit structure there today. And everyone listening, you can also ask your questions in the comments or later on unmute yourself and share your insights or questions with us. So
yeah, I'd love to know. Sorry, I'd love to know where everyone's from. This is exciting. So please let me know where you're from too. I thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Please mention in the comments which country you're dialing in. That would be amazing. Thank you. Alrighty. So Claude, if I were to begin, I really would like to understand what is culture for you? And overall, how do you define it for yourself, for your role, for your company, and why is it important or maybe not important in the current stage of where we are?
Wonderful. For me, culture is a vibe. It's a feeling that I get when I walk into rooms. It's like a texture. You can tell if there's a nice breeze and everything is flowing gently, or if there's fear in the air or stagnation in the air and things feel a little bit choppy and chunky. For me, culture is also created by all of the hearts and the minds of everyone in that area, whether or not that's an entire company or a team or a family or a football team, whatever it is. Even your girlfriends, when you go out to, when we used to go out, I should say, to lunch or to brunch, there's a culture there. And the purpose, I believe, of culture is it's like we are passengers in culture, and we get to cultivate the culture while we're driving in the culture car, if that makes sense. Based on who we are, what we're bringing to the culture. I think one of the things that's really important that I share with everyone that joins Vayner day one, like literally day one, is they are now just as responsible for this culture as I am. I may have been here almost 8 years, but they now have this wonderful responsibility of bringing their best self and promoting kindness and promoting generosity of spirit and promoting movement and progression, just as I do. So that's what I would say. It's everyone's responsibility. And I want that to be a gift for people that they treasure rather than throw out or think, you know what, today I'm just going to put my head down. I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm just going to not answer anything. And that doesn't get you anywhere. Culture I believe it's meant to be collaborative.
And you mentioned, even from what I know as well, that some of the culture elements of VaynerMedia are kindness, caring for everyone, spreading love. How else would you describe the culture of the company in particular, and how did you ended up with it?
Yeah, great. Our culture, I believe, is based on kindness, like period. I think that's what it's based on. That doesn't mean that we it's not a utopia. We have to work on it all the time. And then what goes into the kindness soup, if you will, are things such as generosity, as I mentioned, self-awareness, or the interest in becoming self-aware, being your best self, being your best self, creating safety. We hear a lot about psychological safety now, creating a place where people don't feel scared or don't feel, we've all heard of the Sunday scaries, when you don't want to go to work the next day. I mean, that's a sign to yourself that, oh, something's not quite right. Emotional bravery, vulnerability, fun, enjoyment, vision, success, knowing what success is. I think in terms of the overarching vision for the company, helps people get on board. Like, oh, I want to be that kind of company too. So you can, you need, I believe the best kind of leaders are ones that give people an idea of where we're headed. So that way we can all come into it together. It's more of a, oh, we're all in this together, which also builds resilience, which is important, and grit to an extent, and courage, all of those things. So I feel like, these are all still called soft skills, but they're just not. They're really necessary. And by the way, they're not easy. They're really not, because they're based on emotion. And
yeah,
we all aren't having the greatest day in the, that we wish we were having, or we're all in this pandemic again. Yesterday I spoke to someone, it's her first job. She's in our Los Angeles office. She's been here 2 years. And she said, I don't know if it's me, but I'm just really kind of depressed. And I just am not finding any joy in anything. And I said, you know what? It's not you. Like, look around, especially in your generation. But there's so many of us that are still, there's a low grade of depression, or even grieving of the life we used to have, even though this life the life we have today is amazing and it will continue to be amazing. But, there's a sense of my life, your life consists of looking at a screen.
Yeah, beautiful. And I really like one of the phrases that you shared on the stage of the conference when I first met you in person was the way we see people is the way we treat them. The way we treat them is what they become.
Yes.
And I think this is like the reflection of what you just shared. We like the beliefs and the values that you shared just now. But what if things are not great, the businesses, even through COVID, right? We know how many businesses closed down. So leaders very often have to have this like iron hand and saying like, look, this is the only way we're going. We are in crisis mode. So it's less about kindness and more about getting things done to survive. How to navigate for leaders in this crisis situations and be as kind and as caring and treat people who they truly are.
Yeah, that's a really fundamental question right now. What I can say is so many of us have seen the Great Resignation, right? And then I hope we all move into the Great Retention soon. But the only way to retain your employees is to treat them well, and also compensate them well, give them challenges. But we're not going to retain our top talent by just pushing them to the brink. There's no reason that they should stay with us unless we are paying them $1 zillion, which we're not. So I don't live in a world, and I don't have it's not a possibility in my mind where we would just be in a workplace where you just push and expect your employees to be happy and stay and not get sick and not want to look for other jobs, or not want to just say, peace out, I'm not going to work for the next 6 months, I'm going to travel. I think that's on all of us internally, obviously your CEO, your board, whatever, to remind ourselves that without the people, we're nothing. It's, what I say a lot of times is, heart, the reason this is chief heart officer, heart is, we all have a heart. It's our central operating system. And a company all has what? People, their central operating system. And without the people, you're nothing. You're nothing. So I do believe that you have to have a very intact culture, and a culture, again, that knows where we're going, to keep people there, but also, let people know, like, hey, we've got to put our heads down right now. This is a tough time. We've had to let people go, or sales are drying up or whatnot, but we love you. We're all in this together. Being transparent with your communication, letting people know what's going on. And right there, being transparent with your communication and letting people know what's going on, to me, is a real, dare I say, it's an act of love. And if we don't want to use the word love, let's just use emotional bravery. It's taking a step out of the comfort zone of just like, well, I just won't share that. Oh, they can't handle that. That's too much information for them. And saying, you know what, let me take a risk. These are all big boys and girls here. So I just went around in a circle there, but really, when I really think about it all, I believe that none of us know what the best practices are anymore. I think we're all looking for the next practices. And my hope is that in these companies and cultures, as we're all finding the next practices, they are rooted in being better in the world rather than being right and building the tallest tower in the world. The tallest tower isn't impressive anymore, but bringing people together and creating a place where people feel psychologically safe, and that they're treated well, and that they're challenged. That's impressive to me. And by the way, and I'll stop in a second, I think that's what especially Gen Z's wanting and the millennials are wanting. Like, forget what I want. Like, I'm no one asked us Gen Xers what we wanted at all, for sure. But these other folks are really interested in having purpose, being treated fairly, emotional wellness, well-being. So.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And even like this, right, these challenges that we see, I think this is like the test for leaders to develop their leadership skills and visionary and believe what's next and see beyond the crisis, right? And not to get like influenced by it, just by, I know, throwing people under the bus or anything, right? And also, I also remind myself and other entrepreneurs saying that it doesn't matter what product you build, what technology or anything, it's all about people who are doing whatever you like envision. So if you if you don't see that, that's like on you to grow that understanding and that vision for your people on your team. Yeah, so and that definitely a great reminder, Claude. Thank you. And so about VaynerMedia, how was the evolution of the company's culture? And of course, you joined when the team was smaller. Now there are teams across different countries. It's not only a US-based company anymore. So how was this evolution? How did it like overall develop? What did you do to build it slowly by slowly?
You're right. I joined when we were 300 and now we're 1,500. So, a lot of change has happened. I think there's a couple of things I want to say. One, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Nothing's going to happen in one day. So you have to be really intentional and committed to making culture change. I think that's the first thing, knowing what you want to change. So when I came in to Vayner, great company, 1,000% great company, but it was really known as like a boys club. And that's not to say there weren't women there. It just had that vibe. I could tell it had that vibe. And so how do you change that vibe? That was one of the first things that, I'm sorry, not only change the vibe, but change any reality that might have had, which we have done now. That's taken a lot of time. The second thing I want to say before I go into kind of the how is it has to come from the top. So my CEO, Gary Vaynerchuk, has to say, we are building the greatest human empire in the history of time, and our culture is rooted in kindness. He has to say that. And then he's got me to co-cultivate with everyone. In our kind of company, like, it has to come from him. I would only get so far if it doesn't come, even though I've got a very, great job and responsible for a lot of things. So that, I think that is really important, that I have that kind of partner. Over the years, so I've been there almost 8 years. In March, in May, it'll be 8 years. We have hired a lot more tenured people. So people that come from, with experience and life experience and understanding how to build relationships and understanding, the benefit of, like, when people say, what is the ROI of kindness? I get that question a lot. It's like, what isn't the ROI of kindness? So, bringing in people that want to be on that train with us, that want to figure that out, that want to do things differently. Diversity, inclusivity, and equity has been a big, big thing in our world. I changed the way we hired from culture fit, which meant, oh, I like you. You went to school with my brother. You love Pearl Jam. I love Pearl Jam. You're hired. And then I have to teach literally, Danielle, like, you'll pick it up because we've got a likeness, and, we like each other, and, we want to go on a road trip together. Okay, that's fine in the beginning. But I changed it to skill set fit and culture addition, which immediately allowed us to start looking for different people. People that could fit into the core competencies of what we were looking for, because we wanted to grow and we needed specific skills. And then, of course, people that we liked, but people that didn't look like us, didn't talk like us, maybe didn't pray like us, did so many different things, had seen and unseen handicaps, were different races, ethnicity, religious affiliations, all of those things. And it allowed us to, I believe, get a much more diverse quilt. So if I look at the screen, we're all a little patch on the quilt, on your own grandmother's quilt. And we all bring something to this quilt. And because you already come in with the skills, then we know how to grow you, because, unless you're at the top of your game, but you can add so much to the culture with your own curiosity, your own values, So that was really, really big. And then doing interviewing training, and then doing unconscious bias training, interview training, and then really working on something we'll always work on is retaining top talent, but also making sure that we can promote from within. Because we're 13 years old, which is a blink in time. Speed is very important to us, very important to our CEO, that we are fast, that we don't get bogged down in meetings, that we don't get bogged down with like analysis paralysis, all those things. And in order to create speed, I believe you have to have that psychological safety. You have to create teams that know how to be together, that know how to have conflict and come out, those types of things. Which then, let's just say we get there, we have people that have been there 13 years, 10 years, 4 years. That right there creates shorthand with one another. It's a longevity. So basically, Diana and I, Melissa and I have worked together now for 4 or 5 years, and like, we just can think each other's thoughts almost, which creates the speed, but it also creates a camaraderie. So these are it's all about the people. How did we change it? It's just the people. How do we change it? Spending time with people, making sure that we were very clear on the changes we want to make, the changes we have made, benchmarking our numbers when it came to DE&I. There's a number of things, but really, I have to say, I really believe it came down to the way we hired and the way we interviewed, what we were looking for. I think that was a very big change in the beginning.
Yeah, so the people practices started like, and like kind of like tripled from hiring and interviewing. All the rest like came into place, but these were the most important.
Yeah, that and then learning how to give feedback, obviously, like
Yeah,
that's
the managers probably.
yeah, doing so much training and development, which we still do. I just did a communication style and skills training on Monday, which was fascinating.
For everyone or just for leaders?
No, I had the leaders pick people on their teams that they thought could benefit from the training. And, I have a little spidey sense on who I think could benefit from the training too. So it was just 20 people, and we'll do it again next Monday. It was 3 hours, they have to dedicate 3 hours of time, not looking at their phones and all of that stuff. But if you think about it, we all want to learn and grow because all of us are motivated by progress and momentum. None of us want to stay, I don't believe any of us want to stay stagnant in our jobs and in our lives. So you have to provide that for people. I want to learn this. Can you help me? Someone just asked for, professional coaching yesterday, and we don't have professional coaching, but we have other things that we can provide to her until she can find her own professional coach, So.
And Claude, how does your team, direct HR or people and culture, looks like? What are the team members focused on? How are they structured? I know it's a very HR question, but I know many people ask me as well how to best structure HR teams.
Great. So imagine if I'm kind of like a CHRO, right? And then I have a senior vice president of HR under me, because I don't come from the world of HR. So I've had to learn HR. I brought her in. She's got 20 years of experience, so to speak, right around there. And then we've got HR business partners here. And then we've got our benefits operation, kind of HR operations over here. Obviously, they all work together, but they are very separate, right? This is kind of more on the analytical side, and these are the people. And these people, the HR business partners, and then the HR business managers, scale me. They scale all of us. They're getting it. So if my job is more, I try to think of my job as Switzerland, right? Creating a safe space for people, not being judgmental, listening to everything I possibly can. Then I can hand it off, if something comes to me, hand it off to one of the HR business partners who oversee groups of teams, and they go deep with those teams, core competencies, salary structures, all of that stuff. But the great thing is these people, we all drink very similar water. So I know when I hand this off to her, she's going to take the ball and run with it in the same way I would. So that's how then we've got recruiting too over here. So I would say it's 3 different sects, if you will, across the globe. Yeah, and it was just this year. We really had a small team, and then we got to, I would say, we got to about 1,100 people, 1,200 people, and then I had to hire a lot more because, we pride ourselves on being a high touch culture. And how can you touch everyone and get to know people if you can't.
If you don't have enough people, or if there are too many operations, right? Or too much hiring going on.
Yeah. And I try to make it as flat of an organization. I mean, I actually wish that we didn't have titles, but I know that titles are important for people, and it shows, different progression. But I think I treat everyone the same, and I hope everyone does or will soon treat people with the same level of respect. I know that's wishful thinking a little bit, but
I know this this idea you often share about this, Claude. So I was also curious to understand how this part of you, who you are, like, you know, integrates in the corporate world, and still like the structures, the titles, the process, and so on. So always fascinated by this duality that you hold quite
I
often.
think I'm a dreamer, I'm a dreamer, and then I live in reality and this dream state that I believe will get to maybe, my grandchildren or something.
Yeah, and or your children too. Yeah. And what is it right now that you are focused on in life and in your current work? What is important for you at this particular moment, or maybe for this year?
Um, the world of diversity and inclusivity will remain a top focus until I believe we get much better at it. And that's going to be, constantly kind of like tilling the soil on that one. There's so much to do with that. But that goes back to the hiring and retaining and making sure that there's no bias going on, and making sure, like, if we, have we given this person the same kind of training that we've given that person? Might not look the same. Apples and apples probably won't look the same, but have we looked into situations and with this, just really looking at bias, and we all have bias. So that's a really big one for us. I think the other one is it's really, constantly pushing this envelope of eliminating fear in the system. And that's a big one. And that is something that I'll always be doing. But fear comes in a number of different ways, whether or not someone doesn't listen to your idea, or whether or not someone uses a harsh tone of voice, or whether or not whatever, by the way, whether or not you came into work or you came on screen after having a fight with your spouse, or the dog had a problem, or the kids, like, we come into work with life already. And so, when you ask me, what am I thinking about with work or with life? One of the things I'm really thinking about is that we've had this work-life balance term and this ideal that we've all wanted to get to, oh, I really need work-life balance. And like, is that the kind of balance, or is it life? And work is a part of life. And now that we've all been home for 2 years, I can say it's life, and work is a part of that, because our kids are here, because our dog's here, because I don't know, the plumber came, because we're home. And so we're home, we're in our life. So that's another thing that is, it's a different kind of change. It's probably a much more subtle change, but especially I think when I talk to the people that are more interested in focusing on their mental health and emotional health, like, how can I help them look at their energy, where they're focusing their energy, and how they're managing their energy, rather than how they're managing their project, So that's a lot. There's so many things to say there. Like, my focus is really on each and every individual, and then that's the sum of the parts. Like, how do you talk to someone about, that you're best from 11 to 2 in the afternoon. So what are you doing from 11 to 2 in the afternoon? Working on your calendar, or working on that big project and that PowerPoint, or having a brainstorm with your team? Like, how are you, what's the word, taking advantage of that energy that you have? So there's a lot that I'm working on, but really it's eliminating fear is a huge one, and DE&I is a huge one. And I want VaynerMedia to be the best career choice of someone's life, where they're with us for 4 years or 15 years, but they look back and they go, you know what? Those 4 years I spent at Vayner were life-changing. Like, I never would have become the CMO of Oreo cookies had I not had those. So.
Mhm. Yeah, I think like this phrase clicks so much with me, and I really think that that's like definitely our role. If we are hired and if we are working in this role that we have, like HR leaders, if if someone says this was the best 4 years of my life, I think I can retire easily, and I
Yes,
achieved my mission too. Yeah,
yes.
if people feel that way, because it's such a huge fulfillment. It's unbelievable when people say that. So yeah, I can't
Mhm.
agree more to this.
Yeah, Danielle has a great point here. It's working with home instead of working from home. I actually am going to steal that too. Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you, Danielle. Yeah, and I think that's actually a perfect moment for any question that might have, because I think I spoke a lot, so I really want people as well to ask their questions. So if anyone would like to ask your questions, unmute yourself and ask Claude live, or maybe post your question in the chat, that would be amazing. And in the meantime, I'm just going to check quickly what we have, who we have here. Hello. Hello, Sushma, are you there? Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear
Um,
you.
yeah, I'm here. Eventually, I managed to join you, and I'm so glad that I could, after so long and after listening to a lot of conversations, finally I'm here face to face, and it's a real delight to listen to both of you. I do have one very specific questions. If I can go ahead with that.
Please go ahead. Yeah, Sushma.
So personally, I am a very big fan of culture and change as an area and as a role in organizations. But at the moment, so I'm joining you from India, and it's not only India, in the most of the globe, having a position like chief heart officer, which is at the moment, it's not a default role available in organizations. So say one is aspiring to be that kind of person and take up that role, but if there is no position, so for example, I want to become a person who can take care of people in the organization without being into HR as a function. So how do you think that future of work would be evolving on those lines? Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful question. And I just want to say like a personal anecdote, which is I wasn't in HR for the first 20 years of my career or so, and I was still me. So the real message there is, if you have that heart to help, that's what I call it. If you have if you're obsessed with people and really being of service and helping people get from point A to point B, whatever that is, then please do it. Please continue to do it regardless of your title. That's the first thing. And that's probably a pretty obvious thing, but I always like to say that because, the world needs you. That's for sure. To answer the question, I actually believe, it's a belief, I could be absolutely wrong, that we're going to see the world of HR move towards more coach, I think, guide, rather than the bureaucratic, well, I don't want to do HR. I mean, I didn't want to do HR because I thought HR was just strict. And I had never really received anything from HR, not recognizing that I could change the world of HR within our culture. So, think about coaching skills, whether or not you have the accreditation or not, it doesn't matter. Figure out what it's like to hold space for someone, figure out what it's really like to know that the conversation is not about you, and you don't have to have all the answers. So in many ways, I think the coach is able to navigate you towards the best place to get the answers, or the best place to network with that person who has a skill that you really want. That's what I really think is going to happen with the HR business partner role. So that's, I guess that's what I would say. And don't stop being you. Even if your CEO isn't my CEO, or you report to a board, you know, and the board just cares about the top line revenue, don't stop being here, because the people need you. And there's going to be a lot of people just like you, you'll find. Thank you for the question.
Thank
you,
you.
Sushma.
Thank you for the time. Yeah.
We have a David. I think David, you wanted to ask a question and raised your hand, right?
Yeah, thanks for that. So this has been a great talk. Always great being in a room, listening to you talk, Claude. You know, it's just, what I would say is, we talk about the culture of kindness, and you know, that's very important. How would you say that how would you say us as leaders go to cultivate a culture of kindness, vulnerability, and psychological safety? I know there's a lot of organizations that are currently doing that right now. You know, shout out to yourself, shout out to our mutual friend Mike Vacanti as well, you know, who really exhibits that as well. So what would you say would be the top tips to kind of create a culture of vulnerability, psychological safety, and togetherness?
Love it. Thanks, David. Great to see you. This is what I would say. Size does not matter when it comes to these things. Intention does, and action does. And so what would it be like to get on Slack with your team right now, or your company, or whatever, you know, whatever you have access to, and ask everyone to take out their phone and text two people, or tweet two people, I don't care, a note of appreciation and recognition randomly. They're not expecting it. They haven't heard from you in weeks. Who knows? What would it be like to share something about yourself and a challenge that you're having with your team? And by the way, the challenge can be this: I have gotten to the end of Instagram and I don't know what else to do. Oh, I have no idea what to watch on Netflix anymore. Who knows what to cook? How many times have you cooked chicken this week? I've cooked it 4 times. Like, just being real, I think, obviously creates that culture, or the opening of vulnerability. You know, it's hard for people to speak up when they don't see their leader speaking up and sharing and being transparent and saying, like, you know what, I have a Peloton in my house and I haven't ridden it for 6 months. Okay, well, that's real, right? There's a lot of people like that. So I think right there, breaking down the barrier of, like, I'm holier than thou, or I rule from an eye. Oh, you can never get to know me, but I'm going to ask you everything about you. Like, I think right there starts to create the safety. The other way to create psychological safety, obviously, and we talked about holding space, which is extremely important, is listening. And we listen a lot with our ears, but we listen with our eyes, and we listen with everything. You know, figure out, try to find someone's, you know, physical cues. What are they doing? We can only see each other from this up, right? So you have to lean in that much more, I think. The other thing that you can do is identify, you know, help people. Like, one of the things that when I'm talking to people, I can ascertain at this point in my life, probably because I have it too, is negative self-talk. And so helping someone identify, hey, what did you just say to yourself that you didn't say out loud? You know, and being there for another person is really important. The kindness thing, no act is too small or too big. Holding the door open, saying thank you, writing to that person's manager and saying, you know, I think Anja and Leslie are spectacular, and they really, really got this project over the line in the last 3 weeks. I just want you to know that. So everything I've mentioned requires you, me, just stepping outside of myself a little bit and recognizing that it's just not about me. Like, I have to have enough self-awareness and enough confidence in myself to know, like, I have a pile of goodness to hand out today. I've already taken care of myself. I'm nourishing myself. I worked out. I saw my kids. You know, it's just, these things are, I know they're very common sense, and I know that sometimes common sense isn't that common, especially during change. But how do you balance ambition and patience? Well, you talk about it. How do you balance, humility and yet ambition? You talk about these things. You have chats with each other. So I think the answer I'm going to give right now is bringing people in, bringing people together, and opening the door to humanity, to conversation. Reminding yourself that we all feel better I think this is like I'm sure there's a study out there, but like we all feel so much better when we do things that are bigger than ourselves. And bigger than ourselves could just be so minor as just saying, Leslie, how are you today? How was your weekend? I know that, Bob, I know that, you had to put your dog down. I don't know, whatever it is, name it. It's just called being human. Thanks, David.
Yeah, man, appreciate you.
Thank you, David. We have a question here from Diana. I'll just read it up. How do you picture an HR professional doing an excellent job in a culture role?
Yeah, thank you, Diana. This goes back to the other question that we had a little bit from Sushma, which is, I don't see a difference between you, the engineer, and you, the data analyst, and you, the HR professional, and you, the creative. I think that everyone is responsible for culture, period. And if they don't feel that, then they need to feel that. They need to get on the bandwagon soon. Daniela has a question. I saw that. So how do I picture HR professional doing an excellent job in a cultural role is you have to bring people together. You want to make sure that everyone has a voice. You want to make sure that people are feeling the vibe, which is how we started this conversation, that you don't need people to be, this is not a cult. You don't need people to think apples, 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 apples. You want the entire fruit bowl, because again, everyone expresses things differently. But celebrate that, recognize that. And, to be in a cultural role, like you really are bringing people together. It is not your agenda, it is their agenda. So that's what I would say there. Daniela, you cannot raise your hand.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, Claude. We're going to meet in Antwerpen at a Happiness at Work conference. I'm part of that group, but I'm 54 years old. As I said, I think it's also a Gen all thing. I have so much confidence in the younger generations who are yet on the market, like the millennials, GZ and Gen Alpha. But what I'm struggling with is the people of my age and a little bit older who come from this command and control culture, where I also come from. I'm a scientist. I did research on that. With my research, I go into companies, but it's not enough. Do you have experience, or do you recognize that people of, I'm 54 and older, they're so sometimes stuck in that old command and control thinking that people first is difficult for them?
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely have been there, done that, been there, felt that, I should say. One of the things that we do now, again, I'm in a creative advertising agency, which is very different than science, which is hard, it's much more binary, right? But when we feel, we know that it's going to take someone usually 6 to 12 months to really understand us. Really, it's going to take them a year to understand us and shed the skin of the old way. And the old way is command and control. The old way is ivory tower. The old way is, I'm in an office. You don't come in here. You have to talk to my secretary, my EA, right? Because somehow I have more gray hair, or I've been in the working world that much longer, that I'm that much smarter than you. It is so antiquated, to your point, and it is really missing the opportunity to learn to be a student. And so what we do is have these people, C-suite people I'm talking about, do 30 days as a listening tour, talk to as many people as they possibly can. So I'll meet with them, I'll give them 10 people. That person will give them 10 people or 5 people. And it is all about just getting to know us, getting to know, why are you here? What do you do here? How long have you been here? Blah, 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 blah. And the listening tour seems to help. And by the way, it's not one and done. It needs to happen a lot. So for example, the person I'm thinking about, a C-suite employee, he's been here 3 years. I can say is just getting it now. We're very patient. And every now and then he's like, I got it, I got it, I got it. I'm like, I know you got it. And then he comes back in 3 more months. Now it really sank in. And what is really sinking in is who we are and that we do things differently here. We don't think about advertising in the same way that an old school advertising agency will think about it. We don't bill that way. We don't, and I come from those worlds. So the listening tour also, I think you need to be humble. That's one of the things I would really suggest there. And it is that breed is going to become extinct soon enough. Not that we wish anyone ill harm, but they will retire soon enough. But we need to just make sure that the DNA of the culture, and I don't mean it in the scientific way, the water, that we have a similar identification when it comes to why we're here.
So hire for DNA instead of MBA. Thank you for your.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that.
I love it so much.
Another one. That's a good one. Yeah.
I think, Daniela, you really touched a very important question, because from my experience, I notice command and control happens when we are in a moment of crisis, and they call it like wartime and peacetime CEOs, right?
Yeah.
One day you're wearing this like hat where you make decisions, another time is like peace and everything is harmonious. But I think what Claude mentioned today was it's very important to communicate and like, why is this happening at this particular time in our business, and be very open and not dilute from the core. So these things, command and control, I think from time to time, they do appear at different levels and different seniority of people, but whether the core stays there and the clear communication as well. So I think this can be like discussed and continued.
Mhm.
All right. I think we have Tamara who wanted to ask a question. Tamara, there you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hi, Claude. It's a pleasure. I'm following you in LinkedIn, and I like everything you say, although I do see it as you said, as a dream, in the sense of I would wish that every company has its chief heart officer, but not a lot of them do. And my question goes to, do you think the owners or the CEO or the head of the company's personality affects culture?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. Yes, I do, if the head of the company is visible. So, if they're a known entity, if they walk around, if they walk the halls, if they, for example, my CEO, everyone knows because he's very outspoken on social. So I do think that dictates something at the top, but then you need people to execute and build and cultivate from each and every level, up and down and sideways and sideways. In these independently owned, so for example, I worked in many advertising agencies that were publicly traded, all the big ones, Omnicom and WPP. The CEO didn't really matter. Their personality wasn't what was felt. What was felt was you were at a big ship called WPP, and it was going to take a very long time to turn the ship because no one really had the power. So all of us on the middle level and below kind of like were the culture champions. Now in an independently owned company that I'm in, you know, it's Gary's name on the door and he signs the checks. And fortunately, myself and many other people really are aligned to his philosophies. Whether or not we say them in different ways or we express them in different ways, we're still aligned to the main nugget, the core truth there. So it's much easier to do that dance, no matter where you are. You know, it's much easier to drink that water than the water that some of us drank or drink at corporate places where it's like, I don't even know who runs this place. I mean, I honestly, one of the places I worked at, it was so sad to me. It was probably it was really, I never really thought about this, but I loved the CEO. You know, I loved it because she was a senior level woman in advertising. I just wanted to like promote her. I wanted her to win. Advertising is a boys' club in many ways. And we went out to lunch a couple of times, and it was just so devastating to feel and hear her talk about how much power she didn't have. You know, and that was not why she signed up. She didn't sign up to be powerful. Power hungry. She signed up to be able to put her arms around an agency and move it forward, but she didn't have that ability. It wasn't offered to her.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
All right. Does anyone else have any other question for today? I don't see in the comments, so maybe if you would like to ask.
Hi, Rita.
Yeah.
I'd like to. I have raised my hand also already. So yeah.
Hi, Richa. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Claude. Really, it's a pleasure we've been really waiting for this session, and I hope now you're in good health.
Yes.
And you're doing well. And thank you so much for taking out this time to be with us, and really amazing, insightful session. And, have really, the moment I, looked at your job title, Chief Heart Officer, I've just been drawn towards that because I personally believe in doing things from heart a lot. So, I have been in organizations in my career throughout that where it was always about high performance. Okay, it's high performance culture. So the high performance culture that we talk about, I have observed that, it's leading to a lot of burnout and neglecting your health, and leaders actually, leading by that example of, CEO talking about, I just slept for 5 hours yesterday and all of that. I was like, that's how the leadership team is leading by that example. And I see that commonplace I know, of course, there are some exceptional companies who are doing great work, but that's the common trend. And especially when you talk about startups, that's the kind of culture which is there. So how do we, if we want to, I think like two parts to the question. One would be, you want to move from, high performance. Of course, we want the performance to be there, but a performance not at the cost of your holistic well-being, which is like, of course, your mental health is taking a toll. You are not sleeping enough. And towards a heart-centered culture, that is one. And second is, if in a startup itself, like, because when you're building a small company, and I have worked at large MNCs like KPMG, and I've also worked at, from the scratch at startups, building and scaling companies from scratch. So how do we, what should the, the central CHRO's role be at the beginning in a startup to make sure that we are actually creating a very, very heart-centered culture? What are some of the to-dos with that regard? So yeah.
Great, really great question. And you're right. There's a lot of that crush it mentality and hustle mentality. And I'm really happy to say, I haven't heard Gary say hustle or crush it in about 4 years, which is a big deal. It really is, because we all felt that. We really all were like, oh my God, we got to go crush it today. And it's like, oh, getting a heart attack just thinking about it. So this is what I would do if I was entering. Let's say I had my role, or a head HR role, and I was entering into a company today. The first thing I would do is get to know every single person. That's the first thing I would do. Go on a listening tour, understand what these people are all about, understand what makes them tick. Why are they at this company? What are their hopes? What are their dreams? All of that stuff. So I would really get human about it. and even find out what their challenges are. You know, sometimes I play this game called Rosebud Thorn, especially with more of like the Gen Zs, which is like, you know, what's going good, Rose, Bud, what are you looking forward to, and Thorn, what's the challenge? You know, what do you want to tell me that maybe I can fix? So I would get to know every single person, and that's a, you know, a reoccurring meeting, obviously. I would also make sure that we have in place some kind of wellness program or wellness, I don't know, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. It's 15 minutes of meditation, voluntary, but we really recommend it. I would also make sure that there are all hands happening. So whether or not, you know, you listen, your CEO is speaking or whomever is the head of the company, being transparent about where the company is going, you know, the growth that we've seen, maybe the lack of growth that we've seen, and getting real with people so that they don't have to operate in anxiety. Am I going to lose my job today? Is my manager saying to my whatever that, you know, I only worked 8 hours and everyone else is working 13 hours? Like, you have to figure out like what's the common denominator that's being shared there. I would say I would use that word. But really making sure that the boss, Mr. or Mrs. Boss, is saying like, hey, we want to provide you with everything you can. We want to provide you with a holistic experience here, but you know, we can't, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. At the end of the day, you know, we have a wonderful wellness program at Vayner. Everyone has access to it. It's on everyone's phone, and I can't make you take 15 minutes or 5 minutes off of your day or in your night to listen to a meditation or a wellness seminar or whatever. But making sure that you're providing it, and then empowering people from the side to side, top to bottom, whatever. Like, if you need a mental health day, if you need to go off camera, if you know, speak up, talk about it. So those are probably some of the things that I would do, but it really takes a lot of listening and then a lot of communicating to management and leadership. Like, this is what we're going to do here. You know, we're going to take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claude. Thank you so much. Very, very insightful, like all your answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Claude. I think we're almost at the end of our conversation today, but I want to just maybe, Claude, if you could share some final piece of advice to all of us. Some of us are at the beginning of the journey in HR. Some of us have been there, maybe like hesitating what to do next. What would you advise us in as we build our companies to become great, healthy, people-centric?
Great question. I mean, the first thing is you have to take care of yourself first. And I think in our field, we are in the service of others and in the service of the business constantly. You know, when I was talking about with David, kindness and recognition, I think it's pretty rare that the HR department gets recognized for much, right? The back office never gets recognized for anything. So you got to recognize yourself, and you want to recognize your peers. That's the first thing I would say, and hold each other accountable. If you're in a team of HR professionals or whatever, that's the first thing. And then I think if you have yourself, you know, you have a rhythm for yourself, you have people to talk to on your team, you have yourself good, then I think you can start to implement a listening tour, which I think is really important, getting to know people. It's so simple, and that people just don't take the time. It's 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a half an hour. There's a lot you can get out of a person and have a conversation in 15 minutes. You know, you want to create spaces for people to feel safe, because in those spaces, you're going to feel safe too. Like you have all had the same conversations I've had, where someone's sharing something with you, or there's a breakthrough with them, and you get chills and you get tingles. You're like, something magical is happening here. You know, that's because of what you've created with that person, the connection that you've created with that person. And the way to create connection is to be, show your vulnerability, show the emotional courage, let people know that it's okay right here. I think that's really, really important. Going into more of this coaching realm, and at least in your mind, figuring out what that means for you. Like, what are you going to say in the next meeting? How are you going to enter into that conversation? When I go back to saying, like, I don't think it's about being right. I think it's about being better in this world. So in this conversation, are we creating fear? Or are we creating love? Are we creating stagnant mindset, or is this a growth mindset conversation? Those types of things, which take a lot of awareness and you being conscious, rather than us sleepwalking and pretending that each and every conversation I have is going to be the same, because it's just not, And then again, taking care of yourself, taking care of yourself.
That's so good. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And yeah, I hope there will be a lot of listening tours after today, a lot of real conversations, because you definitely inspired me as well, Claude. So thank you for this. And to everyone who watched and joined us, thank you so much. Please follow Claude on LinkedIn. She shares a lot there, on TikTok, on Instagram. Do give her your love and kindness as well. And everyone, thank you so much for today's conversation, and Claude, especially for you. Much love to you, and have a great Wednesday.
Thank you, everyone. Hit me up. I'd love to stay in touch. Blessings.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.